I wrote an article last year, not on this topic specifically, but just about this rhetorical trope. That's not happening, and it's good that it is. This is a very common left-wing thing right now. Like, for instance, if you want to talk about the Ukraine war, nobody is encircling or trying to starve the Russian economy. But isn't it great that we are, because the bastards have it coming, right? At the same time, you're supposed to not believe something is happening and then get enthusiastic about it. And the Great Reset is like that. If you don't like it, if you're worried about it, as we are, as every author in this book is, and thinks that it's an attempt to change your way of life, strip away your resources, send you back a couple of centuries in terms of technology and standard of living, then it's a conspiracy theory and you're crazy, right? If you think, on the other hand, that it is a harbinger of a great new dawn, a new order of society and civilization, social justice, environmental this, all that stuff, well, then it's wonderful, right? By the way, I take issue with only one thing I heard in the introduction. When it was said that their slogan was, "You'll own nothing and you'll be happy." No. Their slogan is, "You'll own nothing and you'll be happy." They may play a little shell game with you sometimes and hide it, because it's not a popular thing, right? Most people think that in order to be happy, you're gonna have to own a little something, right? They haven't sold it yet to where they have tens or even hundreds of millions or more saying, "Yeah, that sounds great. I'll own nothing and I'll be happy," right? So they haven't given up on the message. They just, when they get a little pushback, they pretend like they didn't say it, and they only trot it out when it's useful. So it's, as I say, it's hard to pin this thing down. What exactly is it, right? Well, it's oligarchical, I think it's safe to say. What is Davos? What is the World Economic Forum? I've actually been there once. Probably never going back, but hey, at least I got to go once to see it up close. It's a collection of the richest people, the most powerful people in the world, and also a lot of their valet class. That is to say, people who aren't that rich, aren't that powerful, but have a megaphone and are sort of their servants who come, listen, get the talking points, know the line that they have to pump out, and then spread throughout the world. It's a kind of open source conspiracy, right? That is to say, by making it open, by inviting favored media, and you guarantee favorable coverage in their in-house newsletter, the Financial Times, which is what I consider to be, all of those types of publications, and then they're not hiding anything. They're sort of, it's not a conspiracy. How could it be a conspiracy if there's press here and you can read about it in an open source newspaper? But it's an attempt to, what the World Economic Forum is an attempt in a way to reorder the world, in a way to protect a new world order that's already been ordered from attacks from the outside, from populism, from Brexit, from the elections of people like Donald Trump, or more recently in Italy, Giorgia Meloni. It's an attempt to keep the train going in an oligarchic top-down direction and to fend off attacks on the flanks is what I think Davos is. And what the Great Reset is, as far as I was able to tell in researching my chapter for this book, is it seems like a kind of the attempt to create a new world order with a sort of weird hybrid billionaire business on the one hand, techno-intellectual on the other hand, aristocracy that will rule you without consent, just boss you around and give you orders in an administrative way, masked with the language of democracy, masked with some of the seeming trappings of democracy, but that is actually just the old-fashioned top-down rule that's been going on in human affairs since there have been politics for the last 6,000 years. So it's new in method. It's really not new in terms of aim. It's an elite that wants to remain elite, that wants to rule, wants to stay in power. I suppose one way in which it's new is it really is much more global than any empire. You think about the world's largest empires in history in terms of territorial extent. This one is larger, or certainly if it pulls off what it is seeking to accomplish. But if you think about it, just think about the OECD. That's the the UN's term for the 20 richest, most developed countries. At least it was 20 the last time I looked. You can rise above a certain level and get into the OECD, right? Every OECD country is to some extent or another, and the richer they are, the more, right, controlled by these people. Now, if you think about that in terms of territorial extent, number of people in those countries, that is to say the size of the population ruled, and the GDP, it may be the largest empire in world history, and the largest, richest, most powerful empire in world history. all the more ingenious because it doesn't seem or feel like an empire, because it's not directly ruling territory through military means the way we traditionally understand an empire, which of course allows them to say, well, you're a crazy conspiracy theorist if you call us this, right? We don't do X and we don't do Y, and therefore we can't be this thing that you say we are. You're crazy. It's quite ingenious. It reminds me of my intellectual inspiration in many ways, Machiavelli's insights 500 years ago about the benefits of indirect government, of not seeming to govern while you really do govern. Who's really in charge? Maybe I'll stop here, but then John can describe his chapter, or Steve can say what he wants to say. But I'm supposedly a political scientist by training, right? So where we're governed by forces we can sort of see, but not in an open way. This isn't Aristotle's politics, Aristotle's understanding of the sovereign is whoever wields power openly, who visibly rules you. You don't really know who visibly rules you in this new order. And I guess maybe my last point is, as I mentioned, I don't know who the sovereign of the United States is. Well, one thing I do know is that the United States and every other country that has gotten into this movement or conspiracy has ceded a lot of sovereignty extraterritorially to something. Now, we're not members of the EU, so we don't have to worry about that. But there's all kinds of ways in which every country that joins this movement finds themselves subject to, if not the direct sovereignty of some international court or international law tribunal, but the soft sovereignty of some miasma of elite opinion that says you may do X and you may not do Y, and no matter what people vote for, and no matter what the documents on, of your, the charters of your liberty, your declaration, your constitution, your statute law says, trying to do something against this miasma of elite opinion turns out to be very difficult and sometimes impossible. And it suggests to me that that elite opinion may be closer to the actual sovereign than anything that we would recognize as such.